When you grow up, your heart dies.
Who cares?
I care.
Ally Sheedy was everywhere in the 1980s. One moment, she was the quiet, mysterious girl in The Breakfast Club. The next, she was leading hit movies and becoming one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. Then, almost suddenly, she seemed to disappear. No big farewell, no clear explanation. Fans kept asking the same question for years. What really happened to Ally Sheedy, and why did Hollywood move on so fast? Was it a bad career choice, a personal struggle, or something deeper happening behind the scenes that the public never saw? In this video, we're going to uncover the real reasons Ally Sheedy stepped away from the spotlight, the pressure she faced at the height of her fame, and the quiet truth behind her vanishing act that most people never knew about. Ally Sheedy was born in New York City on June 13, 1962, into a household shaped by words, ideas, and creative ambition. Her mother, Charlotte Baum Baziutu, moved through the worlds of writing, television, and music publicity, while her father, John Sheedy, worked in advertising. When their marriage ended, Ally was still young, and life narrowed to a quieter, more intimate rhythm. She and her two siblings were raised primarily by their mother on Manhattan's Upper West Side, surrounded by the restless energy and artistic unpredictability of 1970s New York. This city never stopped humming with possibility. As a child, Ally was observant and inward, drawn early to ballet and disciplined by her training with the American Ballet Theater. The stage felt like a promise. Yet before fame or cameras ever found her, she turned to writing as a way to make sense of the world. At just 12, she published a children's book, She Was Nice to Mice, a modest success that improbably carried her onto The Tonight Show. It was a fleeting moment of wonder, the kind that lingers in memory long after the applause fades. As adolescence arrived, her focus slowly shifted from dance to acting. She studied at Columbia Grammar and Preparatory School, performing in local theater and earning notice for a quiet emotional depth that felt unusually honest. After graduation, she enrolled at Columbia University as an English major, balancing coursework with auditions and student films. Caught between who she was becoming and the life she hadn't yet imagined, moving forward with hope, uncertainty, and a growing sense of introspection. By the dawn of the 1980s, Ally Sheedy was no longer invisible. In New York's theater scene, where her presence began to register. Quiet at first, then unmistakable. Small television roles followed, guest appearances on gritty dramas like Saint Elsewhere and Hill Street Blues, where her raw, unpolished intensity hinted at something deeper. Her performances were honest, an exposed nerve that set her apart even before fame had a name for it. Then came 1983, the year everything shifted. It began with Bad Boys, a harsh, unforgiving film that asked more of her than charm. As JC, the devoted girlfriend to Sean Penn's volatile delinquent, Sheedy stepped into a world of violence and emotional instability. The role was bruising and bleak, far removed from the warmth audiences would later associate with her, yet it proved she could stand toe-to-toe with formidable talent. There was nothing decorative about her performance. It was survival, plain and painful. Only months later, she turned the page completely. War Games introduced her to the world as Jennifer Mack, an approachable, sharp-witted teenager pulled into a terrifyingly real Cold War nightmare. The film captured the era's anxieties about technology and power, but it was Sheedy's natural ease that anchored the chaos. She made the extraordinary feel personal. The movie became a cultural landmark, and suddenly, her face was everywhere. With two radically different roles in a single year, one shadowed and severe, the other warm and inviting, Sheedy revealed her range and sealed her arrival. Hollywood took notice. By the time she stepped into Oxford Blues and then The Breakfast Club, she wasn't just another young actress. She had become part of a moment, carrying both the promise and the quiet weight of a generation on the brink. By 1985, Ally Sheedy had become part of something far larger than any single film. Hollywood and the media had begun to call it the Brat Pack, a loose constellation of young actors who seemed to capture the spirit of 1980s youth, restless, intelligent, emotionally exposed, and quietly defiant, alongside names like Judd Nelson, Emilio Estevez, Rob Lowe, Molly Ringwald, Andrew McCarthy, and Demi Moore. Sheedy found herself at the center of a cultural wave she never asked to ride, but couldn't escape. For her, the moment crystallized with The Breakfast Club, as Allison Reynolds, the withdrawn basket case who hides behind tangled hair and heavy silence. Sheedy delivered a performance built on restraint. She barely spoke, yet somehow said everything. While louder personalities filled the frame, it was Allison's loneliness that lingered. That fleeting smile near the end, that fragile moment of connection, became one of the film's most quietly devastating beats. Made on a modest budget, the movie exploded into a generational touchstone, giving voice to teenage alienation and confusion. In the process, it made Sheedy instantly recognizable, not flashy or polished, but thoughtful, wounded, and real. The thinking person's teen icon. Later that same year, St. Elmo's Fire extended the story into adulthood. Directed by Joel Schumacher, it followed a group of recent graduates stumbling through careers, relationships, and the slow erosion of certainty. Sheedy's Leslie Hunter served as the emotional anchor, practical, compassionate, torn between loyalty and self-definition. Where The Breakfast Club captured the ache of adolescence, St. Elmo's Fire explored the uneasy aftermath, when dreams meet compromise. Glossy, stylized, and drenched in 1980s pop excess, the film divided critics but resonated with audiences, becoming a box office success and, for many, an unofficial spiritual sequel. By the end of 1985, Ally Sheedy was everywhere, familiar, trusted, deeply relatable. Yet, beneath the success, a shadow was forming. The very label that lifted her into the spotlight threatened to confine her, turning recognition into expectation. The Brat Pack had made her a symbol of a moment, but moments, like youth itself, never last without a cost. Riding the momentum of The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire, Ally Sheedy entered the mid-1980s as one of Hollywood's safest bets. Success came quickly, and with it, a gentle push toward broader, more commercial films. So the kind designed to fill theaters with families and easy laughter. Like many associated with the Brat Pack, she found herself stepping into lighter territory, even as the industry quietly shifted around her. In 1986, she starred in Short Circuit, a playful science fiction comedy centered on a military robot that unexpectedly develops a conscience. On paper, the premise bordered on absurd. On screen, it worked, largely because of Sheedy. Her warmth, curiosity, and sincere sense of wonder gave the story its emotional core. Paired with Steve Guttenberg, she made the fantasy feel oddly human. The film became a major hit, earning tens of millions at the box office, and introducing her to audiences far beyond teen dramas. For many viewers, it remains pure mid-80s comfort, humor, heart, and optimism wrapped in neon-era charm. The following year brought Made to Order, a whimsical tale about privilege stripped away and humility learned the hard way. It never matched the commercial success of her previous hit, but it revealed her continued interest in character-driven, slightly unconventional roles. Though the film itself was uneven, Sheedy's performance stood out, wry, grounded, and emotionally present, blending sharp humor with genuine vulnerability. By this point, she had proven her range beyond doubt. She could lead a film, move between genres, and carry emotional weight without spectacle. Yet Hollywood, always eager to label, seemed uncertain how to place her next. Having been boxed into a moment and a name, she found herself at a crossroads, successful, visible, and quietly frustrated. For an actress drawn to depth and intelligence, it was a strangely lonely place to stand. Away from the cameras, Ally Sheedy was fighting battles no script could soften. The glare of constant attention, paired with the relentless pace of her early success, slowly wore her down. In later years, she would speak candidly about struggling with addiction and bulimia during this period. Painful realities that were rarely acknowledged, let alone understood, in the culture of the 1980s. What looked like momentum from the outside often felt like exhaustion within. A quiet unraveling fueled by pressure, expectation, and doubt. After years of working without pause, the weight became impossible to ignore. She stepped back from Hollywood, choosing recovery over visibility, and began the difficult work of rediscovering who she was without the industry defining her. Around the same time, her relationship with Bon Jovi guitarist Richie Sambora came to an end. Despite the tabloid attention it attracted, the breakup felt less like a scandal and more like a closing chapter, a necessary rupture before renewal. Even in these quieter years, Sheedy never truly disappeared. She gravitated towards smaller films, television work, and the stage, seeking spaces that felt more intimate and honest. And when she eventually resurfaced toward the end of the decade, it wasn't through glossy spectacle or box office calculation. It came through a choice that was riskier, more personal, and unmistakably her own, a return rooted in courage rather than comfort. By the late 1990s, few people were expecting Ally Sheedy to reappear in any meaningful way. The Brat Pack era had faded into nostalgia, and most of its icons had slipped quietly from view. But Sheedy wasn't finished. In 1998, she accepted a role in a small independent film, High Art, and it reframed everything people thought they knew about her. She played Lucy Berliner, a once-acclaimed photographer living in isolation, dulled by addiction and creative exhaustion. The performance was raw and restrained, stripped of the warmth that had defined her earlier work. That distance was deliberate. Free from studio pressure and image expectations, she worked with a rare openness, allowing vulnerability to replace polish. Those involved in the film later noted her complete lack of vanity and fearless commitment. Lucy's struggles, creativity, isolation, self-destruction mirrored parts of Sheedy's own life, giving the role an aching authenticity. Years later, she reflected that it was the closest she had ever come to putting her real self on screen. High Art wasn't a comeback in the traditional sense. It was something quieter and braver, closure, healing, and proof that her most truthful work still lay within reach. After High Art, Ally Sheedy no longer chased momentum or headlines. She had already crossed the line that mattered most, proving something to herself. Instead of pursuing another surge of fame, she turned toward work that felt grounding, purposeful, and quietly honest. In the years that followed, she began teaching acting at the City College of New York, guiding young performers who reminded her of her own early uncertainty. She often spoke about valuing truth over technique, about the moment an actor stops trying to impress and starts genuinely feeling. Students remember her as thoughtful, generous, and notably unassuming, someone who never leaned on reputation, treating everyone in the room as an equal creative partner. At the same time, Sheedy returned to the stage, appearing in regional theater and off-Broadway productions. Theater offered something film rarely could: immediacy, risk, and renewal, night after night. It allowed her to rediscover the craft without the machinery of Hollywood pressing in. Television later reintroduced her to wider audiences in the 2000s through a recurring role on Psych as the unsettling and darkly humorous Mr. Yang. The performance surprised viewers, sharp, playful, and eerie all at once, and revealed her willingness to subvert expectations. The show's creators praised her for embracing unpredictability and leaning into complexity rather than comfort. Since then, Sheedy has continued to choose smaller films and stage projects, often centered on themes of identity, recovery, and creative survival, subjects that clearly echo her own journey. Today, she seems at peace living quietly in New York, teaching, performing occasionally, and accepting only the work that resonates. Her personal life, much like her later career, unfolds without spectacle, reflective, restrained, and quietly compelling. In 1992, Ally Sheedy married actor David Lansbury, a member of the renowned Lansbury family, and a few years later, they welcomed their son, Beckett. Their marriage lasted more than 2 decades before quietly coming to an end in the 2000s, without spectacle or public unraveling. Since then, Sheedy has settled into a largely solitary life in New York City, by choice. It's a slower, more deliberate existence, shaped by teaching, creativity, and work that carries meaning rather than noise. Acting remains part of her life, but only when a project feels honest and necessary. In recent years, she has continued to appear selectively on screen. In 2022, she played the mother of the lead character in the acclaimed series Single Drunk Female, bringing a sense of lived-in authority and emotional restraint that mirrored her own evolution. In 2024, she participated in the documentary Brats, revisiting the Brat Pack years with clarity and distance, openly reflecting on the weight and the limits of that label. Her legacy, however, reaches beyond nostalgia. Ali Sheedy remains one of the most emotionally grounded performers to emerge from 1980s cinema. Films like The Breakfast Club, St. Elmo's Fire, and High Art continue to resonate because they tap into vulnerability rather than trend. Alongside her ongoing work as an acting teacher at the City College of New York, she has quietly influenced how we think about typecasting, early fame, and reinvention. Having lived the dream so many chase, Sheedy now seems focused on something rarer, creating work that endures simply because it matters.